We need to go live to Washington, D.C., where a little over a year after one of the deadliest plane crashes in American history, the families of victims of that DCA midair collision between a military helicopter and a American Airlines plane, they are speaking right now, urging lawmakers to pass aviation reform. This comes as the House is expected to vote today on what is called the ROTOR Act, which would demand that military and commercial aircraft use certain tracking technology to avoid collisions. The Pentagon just taking back its support of this bill, saying that it would create significant unresolved budgetary issues, burdens, and operation security risk affecting national defense activities. These families believe this needs to take place. Remember, 67 people died in that crash in January of 2025. With that, we're going to go to the families of those victims.
And the NTSB chair testified under oath that it would have prevented this collision. The ROTOR Act takes a critical step forward by ensuring that safety technology is not just available, but operational and used for the purpose it was designed to serve. The best time to make these changes was years ago. The next best time is today. Pass the ROTOR Act. We thank you for your commitment to protecting the flying public.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you for your very accurate summary of the opposition to the bill on the House floor yesterday. We'll next hear from Audrey Patel.
My name is Audrey Patel, and I am here today because my husband, Vic Patel, is not. He should have been here for his 34th and 35th birthdays. He was not. He should have been here to celebrate our first wedding anniversary. He was not. He should have been here for the birth of our son, our first and now only child. He was not. Vic's future was stolen from him. One of his greatest dreams was to become a father. And now our son will have to learn the word daddy from looking at a photo. I'm here because my husband was among those lost in the midair collision at DCA last year. To be honest, lost feels too gentle of a word for the brutal and public way Vic and 66 other souls were torn from this world. In the weeks and months following the accident, it became more and more clear that this kind of brutal loss could happen again. In the 13 months since the accident, there have been near misses at airports all around the country. And the main cause for this collision, a complete inability for the two aircraft to see each other. With the information available to them, the crews didn't have a fighting chance to avoid what was virtually invisible. This is why I urge our representatives to vote yes on the ROTOR Act today. We know why this happened and how to prevent it. The ROTOR Act is ready now with the highest impact safety measures for preventing midair collisions. The best way to honor the victims and their families is to finally move forward with ADSB in through the ROTOR Act. Then, the remaining NTSB recommendations with the Alert Act when it's ready. ROTOR is not the only step. It is the first step, and it's time to take that step today. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey, very much. We'll next hear from Sheri Lily.
Thank you. On January 29, 2025, First Officer Sam Lilly reported for work to do something he loved, to fly safely and to transport precious souls from one place to another for work or recreation, to reunite them with family members. That did not happen on January 29, 2025. 67 lives were lost that night, and Audrey's correct. Loss is too gentle of a word. But we are here primarily, my husband and I, because of Sam. However, We're also here for these crew members. We're here for the crew members of PAT 25, 3 individuals who were faithfully serving our nation. And we're also here for all of the passengers on Flight 5342, bright futures that were lost on that night. This is also about every single family that trusts our national airspace each time they board an aircraft. We cannot change what happened that night, but we can take action today. We can decide what happens next. That is up to the elected members in the House. Later today, they will have an opportunity to vote on the ROTOR Act. The NTSB conducted a thorough, independent investigation. They analyzed data, systems, policies, and procedures. Their recommendations are clear, informed, and grounded in science. The ROTOR Act advances the most critical recommendations of the NTSB recommendations out of the final report. Specifically, ADSBN with a clear mandate, as well as repealing Section 373 of the NDAA that allows the military to approve waivers to operate without ADSB out operational. This is not partisan. It's not political. This is about human beings, and it's about aviation safety. My husband, Tim, is an experienced Army helicopter pilot. He flew this very route. He is also type rated on a CRJ. He is a commercial aviation, private aviation now, fixed wing pilot. He and I have spent the last year engaging with aviation professionals, legislators, and regulators. We're not speaking from emotion alone. We're speaking from data, systems knowledge, and from an understanding of how these layered safety systems must work together. We cannot allow these known risks to remain unaddressed. As a result, we urge every member to vote today yes on the ROTOR Act. We urge leadership to ensure swift passage and full implementation. We urge the responsible agencies to act with urgency because implementation matters as much as passage of this legislation. Safety delayed is safety denied. Safety that should have been in place on January 29, 2025. Sam believed in professionalism, discipline, and continuous improvement. That is what aviation demands, and that is why our families are here advocating. ROTOR Act is just a first step. Alert can come alongside and through markup provide a companion act to implement the other recommendations of the NTSB. The families who lost loved ones on January 29th deserve action, not delay. Please take action today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheri, very much. We'll next hear from Doug Lane, Rhode Island.
My name is Doug Lane. I lost my wife, Christine, and my son, Spencer. He was 16 on Flight 5342. In the days following the collision, I sat alongside these and other family members in hours-long NTSB briefings, desperately trying to understand how it was possible for something like this to happen. And the more I learned about how the evening of January 29th, 2025 unfolded, the less any of it made sense to me. I was shocked by how much of the burden of avoiding midair collisions falls into the hands of pilots and air traffic controllers, humans, operating under tremendous task pressure, communicating over fragmented and incomplete radio transmissions. It was inconceivable to me that in the age of GPS-enabled smartphones in every pocket, that there was no way for pilots flying aircraft with price tags in the tens of millions of dollars to see visually whether other aircraft in the airspace were on a collision course. What I soon learned is that this technology does exist, and it has for decades. ADS-B is not emerging technology like you so disingenuously heard it so just disingenuously described on the House floor yesterday. It's mature and proven technology that the NTSB has been recommending for 20 years. But the aviation industry and military are dragging its feet on its adoption, and the FAA has ignored repeated recommendations from the NTSB to make ADS-B mandatory. This piece of paper I'm holding is dated February 14th, 2008. It's a letter from the NTSB to the FAA commenting on their rulemaking process for ADS-B. It attempts to correct the FAA's flawed assumption that ADS-B is not required to keep our airspace safe. They noted the equipage of aircraft with ADS-B capability will provide an immediate and substantial contribution to safety, especially during operations in and around airports. Does that sound familiar? "154 days after this letter was written, my son Spencer was born. He lived life at full speed, always chasing adventure, human connection, and ever more ambitious challenges, all of which he found living out his dream as a competitive figure skater. 16 years, 6 months, and 12 days after this letter was written, he was dead. 363 days after that, I learned from the NTSB that ADS-B recommended in a letter before he was born would have saved his life, my wife's life, and 65 other beautiful people. The FAA had a lifetime to get ADS-B right in their safety recommendations and in their requirements and rulemaking process. They had Spencer's entire life to get this right through rulemaking. They failed. And we are not going to let ADS-B go off to rulemaking again. The Alert Act that you heard so much about on the House floor yesterday does not address ADS-B. It sends it to backroom rulemaking processes and committees stacked with special interests who will pick it apart until it dies a slow death. They killed ADS-B in that way before, and they will do it again if we let them. That's the playbook that they are running here. Mandatory ADS-B equipage for all aircraft that are already required to broadcast ADS-B out must be written into law. The ROTOR Act, and only the ROTOR Act, does this. Please honor the 67 people who lost their lives in this 100% avoidable tragedy by passing the ROTOR Act today.
Thank you, Doug, very much. I'll now hear from great Congressman James Walkinshaw from Fairfax.
Thank you. I want to thank Congressman Beyer for his incredible leadership on this issue, and I especially want to thank all of the family members who, in the midst of their grief, have been tireless advocates to make every single American safer. The unimaginable losses they've endured didn't come from a natural disaster. It's entirely preventable. It's caused by failure over many years by the FAA, Defense Department, industry to take action in the face of alarm bell after alarm bell after alarm bell. We knew the airspace was dangerous. Rank-and-file controllers who raised concerns were ignored after begging for policies that could mitigate the risks. Industry was allowed to stack more and more flights into a dangerous airspace, guaranteeing that it would ultimately become deadly, as it has in the past. It was a collective failure that brought about a tragedy and terrible loss that can never be undone. But we can honor the memory and the legacy of those who were lost and the surviving family members who are here with us today by taking action. Every single member of Congress, every single member of the House of Representatives today owes it to these families to pass the ROTOR Act and mandate the safety upgrades that we know would have prevented this tragedy and will prevent the next tragedy. We don't need another working group. We don't need more studies. We don't need more rulemaking. We have a clear path of action, and the ROTOR Act is the critical first step in that clear path of action. Every American should be thankful and grateful that because of the families of Flight 5342, we can all be safer if the House does its part in taking the first step today. Thank you.
Thank you, James, very much. We'll next hear from Debbie Epstein.
Thank you. On January 29, 2025, our loved one, Flight Attendant Ian Epstein, along with fellow crew members Denisha, Jonathan, and Sam, and 64 passengers that he was tasked to take care of on Flight 5342, never made it home that day. Ian was the love, fun, and laughter of our family. I could stand here and tell you of all the one-time things that we've had to go forward and now miss with having him as part of our family. But more important today is to address things that we can take care of today. As a country, we tend to be reactionary. We wait for a catastrophic event to occur before we address main root issues that are out there that people knew about, but just were not willing to address. Today, we have the opportunity to pass the ROTOR Act, which addresses some of the main core issues that caused that catastrophic event of Flight 5342. I would like to see the House of Representatives today be proactive for one time and pass that ROTOR Act today. We can address the other issues down the line. That's what we do as a country. We add, as time goes on, necessary elements that needed to be added. But the most important thing today is to be proactive as a country. Stop another catastrophic event from happening before it happens. Pass the ROTOR Act today.
Thank you, Debbie. Yesterday, Congressman Subramaniam, Congressman Waukesha, Congressman Amo, and I, Congressman Nels, all spoke as best we could about why passing the ROTOR Act was so important to do today. I just wish our rules allowed the family members to speak, because they did a very, very good job, a more persuasive job. I can't imagine a member of Congress voting no after hearing what you had to say. We're now going to move on to our organization partner, and we have Jason Ambrosi from the Airline Pilots Association speaking. Please.
Thank you, sir. I'm Captain Jason Ambrosi, President of the Airline Pilots Association International. On behalf of 80,000 pilots in the United States and Canada, I am proud to stand with the families of PSA Flight 5342 and bipartisan members of Congress to call for the passage of the ROTOR Act. 59 seconds versus 19. That's the difference the NTSB says ADS-BN could have made for PSA 5342, saving 67 lives. On January 29, 2025, we lost two members of our union, Captain Jonathan Campos and Honorary Captain Sam Lily. I'm honored that the Lilies and so many of the loved ones are here with us today. This tragedy highlights a hard truth. Improvements are needed now to ensure no other families feel the same pain as those with us here today. This accident was preventable. and preventing the next one is now a test of leadership. The ROTOR Act will require ADS-B, a surveillance technology, as you've heard, that pilots can view on their flight deck display, providing real-time traffic alerts, as recommended by the NTSB. This technology could have alerted the pilots of the imminent collision, giving them time to avoid it. Congress has an obligation to honor their memory of who we lost a year ago and take action now. We call on the House to pass the ROTOR Act without delay. Then let's work together on the Alert Act to address the remaining NTSB recommendations. This really shouldn't be difficult. All of the above for safety, not one or the other. This tragedy, again, came down to a difference of 59 seconds versus 19. ADS-B and the ROTOR Act will give every pilot the awareness and then that time we need to prevent tragedy.
Captain, thank you very much. We're now willing to take questions, and please remember that the chair of the NTSB, Jen Hamady, is with us also. Yes, please.
Will Guy, the air current. If the bill were to fail this afternoon, what is your path forward? Do you expect a conference with the Alert, or how are you doing that?
I'm not sure what the path forward would be. At a minimum, we would be looking at the Alert Act and trying to add NTSB in and out to the Alert Act. But we also, as many people, veterans know here, they don't always pass the first time. We're very hopeful that this will pass today. It went through the Senate unanimously, as we've heard. But we're not going to give up. We will play again. We will likely have a different Congress next year, and we will keep pushing until this happens. Yes, please.
Congressman Dave Shepherdson from Reuters. Can you address the last-minute concerns the Pentagon raised about the bill and whether it would propose on, excessive costs or impact national security?
Let me just ask, are any of my colleagues on HASC? No. I was going to defer to somebody on armed services, but there's obviously the concern in the past was why they had the exemption, and I think it was explained that when you're actually evacuating the president or the vice president, you probably need ADS-B off, but there's a national emergency. But all the times that they're practicing, which is what they were doing, and certifying, making sure that there's no reason to have it off at all. So and by the way, the lead sponsors, Congressman Onder, Senator Cruz, et cetera, had worked closely with the Department of Defense in the run-up to this. And it was a surprise to hear this at the last minute, that somehow Secretary Hegseth and his team had some objections to it. So we're very disappointed in that. Obviously eager to work with them, but we don't understand the concern. Yes, please.
Related to that, have you had conversations with members since the Pentagon shared their concerns, and what have you said to them about why, even since the Pentagon released that statement, they should still vote yes for this act?
I have not. Most people didn't come in yesterday because of the snowstorm, so we're just gathering. We have lots of time today, including time on the floor, to persuade people that this is inappropriate.
And so what would then be your message? If they see this statement from the Pentagon, why are you still going to say please vote yes?
Well, I think we just put it in overall context that there was no reason for in the helicopter that night not to have ADS-B out and in on. They were just practicing. They were recertifying some of the people on the team. The notion that somehow a terrorist is sophisticated enough to track a practice flight and know exactly what's going to happen 3 years from now or perhaps never is just not meaningful. By the way, our families and the pilots are most willing to answer questions too if you have them.
I do have a question for the pilots. Just how much would ADS-B if it was on all the time, make your life easier and safer?
Again, it's as simple as 59 seconds versus 19 in that situation. This is not emerging technology, as some others have briefed. I also fly general aviation, and general aviation airplanes have this. My airliner does not. It's almost crazy that it does not. So this is technology that helps our situational awareness. And to the question of military operations in our complex and busy airspace, go find somewhere else to fly if you don't want to report your location. But if you're in our kind of airspace, near DCA or take New York or take anywhere, you want to operate in that airspace, you need to be telling us your position so that I don't lose crew members and these folks don't lose family members. That's my opinion.
Congressman Beyer, the bill today is coming up on a suspension vote. Do you think that there's any chance that, because that requires a 2/3 threshold, that if the vote doesn't meet that 2/3, that House leadership might bring it up for a majority vote later on, or is that something you would want to see from Speaker?
That's a really important question for those who are not obsessive on how the House floor works. In a suspension vote, we need 290 votes out of 435. It might be one or two less because we're missing a member. That's a big challenge. It comes over that way because it came through the Senate unanimously. If it doesn't get the 2/3 vote, I certainly think all of us will do our damnedest to make sure that the House puts it on the floor through a rule, which means it would need a simple majority. And if we, for example, fall a few votes short, come in at 240 or something like that, there'll be every reason to think that it would pass on a majority vote. And therefore, we'd have to push to overcome the chairman of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee's objections. But we want the will of the people to prevail. Yes, please.
And then for the families, any of the families, I know Doug mentioned the letter all those years ago about ADSB and what it could have done. When you hear the congressman talk about what if this does not pass today, could you speak to why, in your view, this needs to happen today and not at a later vote?
We can go together. My name's Amy Hunter. It is unconscionable that we are having to be here right now. It is unconscionable. We should not have to be here. Repeat your question.
The importance of it happening today.
Because if it passes today and President Trump signs it, it goes into action immediately. If we wait, we are all of you all are flying. Your families are all flying. You run exactly the same risk, but you know about it now. It has to pass today. Thank you.
I just want to add one point to what Amy said. Even if the ROTOR Act passes today, this ADS-B and technology will not make its way through the entire airspace until 2031. So just getting this passed today is a starting point. If we wait longer, that date's going to get pushed out. And as I mentioned earlier in my remarks, the alternative approaches that are being proposed to dealing with this do not require ADS-BN. That what they do is they require a whole bunch of different industry groups to get together with the FAA, behind closed doors, mind you, to hash this out, and everyone has a chance to kind of weaken it or carve out exceptions for their type of aircraft. And this is what's happened in the past. The NTSB has recommended this 17 times prior to our collision. So we can't just go follow the same process again, only behind closed doors this time, and expect that we're going to get a different result. It has to be written into law in order for this to actually happen. If it doesn't, it's just going to go to a black hole and die.
Do you think we can hear from the NTSB chair on the recommendations of ADSB?
Yeah, can I do a gaggle afterwards? That'd be better.
Yeah. The chair is not allowed to lobby on specific bills.
I can't lobby, but I can talk about our position on different things, but just have to do it afterwards.
Great. Thank you all very much. And let me, from all the members of Congress, a heartfelt thanks to all the family members for sharing your passion, your energy, your not just your loss, the tragedy that you experience, and using that tragedy to change the future for every American, perhaps people all around the world. If this passes today, it's totally your credit. And if it doesn't pass today, we will keep working with you until it does become law. and thank all of you for staying with us today. Thank you. Thank you very much.
The person you were seeing there speaking at the end, that is Virginia Congressman Don Beyer there. You just listening to relatives of victims of that deadly midair collision in Washington, D.C. a little more than a year ago, January of 2025. 67 people died in that. And you heard they are pushing for the House today to sign the ROTOR Act. This would mandate certain technology on military and on passenger commercial aircraft that would have certain tracking technology to avoid collisions like this. Remember, we learned from federal officials just a few weeks ago within the NTSB that a part of what caused this crash, this midair collision, there was the fact that there was not the necessary kind of equipment that could have helped both sides know that the others were there. The passenger plane had that, but the military helicopter did not. But there's a bigger scope there. That quote that you heard there at the very end saying that, hey, if this passes today and the president signs it, we can make changes immediately. If not, we are all flying with the same risks. We just know about it now. Part of what that speaks to is that this is not a standalone event in terms of how close these two aircrafts came. In this case, they obviously collided, a devastating result. But that airport had reportedly had 85 near misses in the 3 years prior to the crash. There have been lawmakers, including right here in Illinois with Senator Warner, speaking out for a long time prior to this deadly collision about the issues with the traffic above DCA, Reagan National Airport. Okay, so these families say something needs to be done. This needs to pass. It's already passed in the Senate, and now is the House's turn. They're expected to take it up for a vote today, and if that happens, then it will go to the president. But we have learned now that the Pentagon apparently has pulled its support of the ROTOR Act, as I told you prior to this, citing, quote, significant unresolved budgetary burdens and operation security risk affecting national defense activities. So it is still to be seen whether or not the House will pass this ROTOR Act bill into the next phase so they can go to the president's desk. But those families, including the wife of a man who died on that plane, who was 33 years old, 2 weeks prior to that crash, you just learned that he and his wife were going to be having their first and only child. They want something to be done, and that something today is for this bill to be passed by the House.